Now, we already have a very exciting edit here, but let's spice this up a little bit and add some transitions between the individual clips. As you can see, all of the cuts, or edits as they are called, between our clips are just straight cuts. It just jumps from one clip to the next. But Premiere Pro actually contains a large number of different video transitions that you can apply to transition a little bit nicer from one clip into the next. All of those video transitions you will find in the Effects panel. Again, if you can't see this panel, come into Window and make sure you enable the Effects panel. Let's just make this one a little bit bigger. And in the Effects panel, you will find audio effects, audio transitions, video effects, and video transitions. Let's open up the video transitions. And what types of transitions you have in here might differ a little bit depending on what you have installed on your machine, as well as the version of Premiere Pro. Let's just come into the Dissolve folder and let's pick this Cross Dissolve to fade very gently from the face of this jackalope over into this scene of the moon, because it does feel a little bit abrupt. In order to add a transition to any cut in your timeline, simply click on it in the Effects panel and drag it onto that cut. Let's let go and let me zoom in a little bit. So right here we have now added this cross dissolve between these two clips, and if you scrub over this, you can see that this actually fades from one clip into the next. Now this transition right now is actually very short. If you double click on it, you get a little dialog to define the transition duration. Right now that's just set to 8 frames, which is very, very short. Let's set this to 24, which, because our sequence is 24 frames per second, will be a full second. Hit OK. And you can see that the transition has gotten a little bit longer. You can actually also select the edges of this transition and drag out to make it longer, or drag in to make it shorter. So there's different ways of defining the length of these transitions. Let's zoom out a little bit, rewind, let's play this back. Cool, and we've added our first video transition. Let's add a different transition. What I'm going to do is maybe between this shot here of my wife looking at the jackalope creature to this close-up shot of the bunny face, where it zooms in on the bunny here and then zooms back out on the bunny face. Again, in the video transitions within the Effects panel, let's come down and there's a folder for zoom. Let's expand this, and there's a cross zoom in here. And again, if you don't have these particular transition effects, just grab any of the ones that you have and try them out. A lot of them are actually pretty cool. So let's grab this, drag and drop it onto the cut between these two clips. I'm going to double click on it as well. And again, let's set that to 24. The default for my transition is set to 8 frames a second. I think by default for you, it might be 12 or 24, but you can just change the duration to anything that you want. Let's hit OK. And let's play this back. Cool, that's not too bad. I actually think that's a bit too long. So let's double click on this transition again. I'm going to delete that 0 out of there and set this to 12 frames, which will be half a second. So the transition will be a little bit more snappy. Let's come back. Let's play this back. Yep, cool. I think that just looks a little bit more normal. Now let's come to the very beginning. And let's say we want to fade this video in so it doesn't just start with a full frame. For that, again, in the Dissolve folder, you'll find a dip to black or dip to white. Let's grab this and let's drop this at the beginning of the first clip. So I'm not actually dropping it on a transition between two clips, but at the very start of a clip. And that works as well. It essentially just starts out with nothing and then applies the transition and then fades into this clip. So it's going to fade in from black. I'm going to make this a little bit longer, maybe go with 24, because we're just starting the video. This is kind of a soft transition into our video. Let's rewind, play this back. Cool, and we've now added some transitions to make our edit a little bit more interesting. Now do note that if you move clips away from each other that have a transition between them, so right here for example, if I was to move these clips away over to the right hand side, that transition is going to vanish. I'm going to lose that transition because those two clips are no longer connected. Let's undo that with Ctrl or Command and Z. And the other thing you can do with transitions, with a transition selected, in the Effects Controls panel, you'll often see a number of different options where you can actually configure and customize these transitions. Now, the options you will see here depend on what transition you have applied and what transition you have selected in your timeline. But just be aware that there are additional controls and additional options for quite a few of these transitions. And then you can just apply them, play with them, try them out, and just spice up your edit. Now, if you're just getting into filmmaking in general, don't apply transitions to everything just for the sake of it. Do them where they make sense. For example, here, this fade to black is just kind of introducing the user gently into a story. This bunny hop is kind of changing from the perspective of someone outside, essentially to the viewpoint of my wife looking up at the bunny. So this transition kind of makes a little bit more sense. Also, because the clip of the bunny and the clip of the dark moon are kind of, they don't quite match, so I wanted to fade from one into the other, and it applies a change of scenery or a change of time. But again, it's totally up to you what you want to do with your video edit and what type of transitions you want to apply. Just be aware that it can easily be overdone. The other thing you can do as well to spice up your edit is actually apply video effects to the video clips on your timeline. Let's talk about that in the next lesson.